and welcome to the Secrets of Organ Playing podcast. I'm your host, Vidas Pinkevicius. Hello, this is Vidas Pinkevicius.
And Ausra-Motuzaite-Pinkeviciene.
And today's podcast will be very special. We are in the town of Nida, where last night we performed a four-hand organ duet performance, complete 6 organ sonatas by Franz Seydelmann, a Mozart contemporary. And this podcast will feature some of our accounts and experiences from last night, and you will find out all about what it takes to prepare and perform such a recital and how to deal with challenges in life situations when your organ decides not to behave. Let's go to the show. So, Ausra, we played another concert with you in Nida in 4 hands. That was 6 sonatas by Seydelmann, Franz Seydelmann. But this is the second time we played this program. Remember, 6 weeks ago we performed the same program at our church, Vilnius University St. Church. So, how do you feel about those 2 concerts if you compare them? Which one was easier for you?
Well, it's a hard question to answer. I think after all, this one, the last one in Nida, was harder. Although we were both very different.
Mm-hmm.
And had very hard things in their own way.
Right. And which one was more fun to perform?
I would say the last one because we had more adventures.
Adventures, yes. And you will hear all about those adventures in this podcast, I hope, because it's so fresh in our mind, because we just played it yesterday. So fantastic. Let's start from the top, from the beginning. How did we decide about this program? Who inspired us to play all 6 sonatas by Franz Seydelmann?
Well, we had a score. Actually, we had 2 additional
editions of score, yeah.
So we chose one of them actually to perform.
And why we chose this horizontal layout of the edition, edited by Bernard Brauchle?
Because it's actually easier to turn pages on horizontal edition, comparing to the vertical one.
And who was Franz Seydelmann, by the way?
He was Mozart's contemporary composer, almost contemporary composer. He lived in Dresden all his life, Germany, and he performed operas, I believe.
Wrote operas, right?
Wrote operas, yes. Wrote operas, and actually also wrote 6 sonatas for 4 hands. And it's a nice thing about these sonatas. We are written only for a keyboard, but you actually can play it on the harpsichord, clavichord, piano actually, and the organ. So
these 6 sonatas were written in the tradition of 18th century for 2 musicians to perform on one keyboard, right? And that was usually a family music making, right? Where for example, husband and wife would be performing a piece of music together on one keyboard. Not necessarily, I would say husband and wife. I think after marriage, probably no performance would end up. But in those days, it was really popular. You see, for example, even on the title page of our edition of 6 sonatas for 2 keyboards on one keyboard by Franz Seydelmann, there is an engraving from 18th century, original engraving, where really 2 people are playing those pieces probably on one keyboard, and more interesting, at the same engraving is not visible, but on the edge there is another person listening, sort of a friend, family friend, right? Leaning on a stick. I will put this photo in the description of this conversation so that everybody can see it. So did you find that the music of Seydelmann was suitable for audiences that come to Nida? And we have to remind, right, our listeners what Nida is. Can you tell a little bit what the town of Nida is?
Well, this is a little town on the coast, and it's on the peninsula.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically, for summer tourists. We come there and, are having fun, going to sea bathing and having all other summer attractions. And there are also this quite old Lutheran church, and it has organ built by Rimantas Gučas. It has 2 manuals and pedals, actually root positive, which is very rare thing in Lithuania to have. And there are summer organ concerts.
Mm-hmm. Organized by New Organ Forum, which is led by our friend Balys Vaitkus. And he sort of organizes every summer this festival for 15 years. This is 15 years he does that. So
yes, actually, and he does it not alone because his wife Vida helps him a lot.
Right. So they're both our friends and colleagues, and we interact with them and collaborate with them quite frequently on numerous occasions and numerous projects. So going back to our recital, do you think that tourists who come, especially German tourists, right, who come to this concert, have enjoyed this concert?
I think so, yes, because composer was German and music was, I think, easy to listen to. It's easy to listen to music, but it's hard actually to perform.
Mm-hmm. So we thought about those things before choosing the program, of course. What would be pleasurable for our listeners for future would be German tourists, for example, who are not really coming to Nida to listen to organ music. They're coming to Nida to have, to have vacation, right? To have some fun on the seacoast, but not necessarily to listen to organ music. And they come to organ recitals sort of incidentally, because there are several cultural activities going on in those days during their vacation time, and they can choose from them, right?
Sure.
Because it's not really fun to lie on the beach all week long, so they come especially at the evenings to concerts.
Yes, but actually this year we had a bad competitor to our recital, because now in Europe, in France actually, it's soccer.
Yeah, European
Soccer Cup.
Yes.
And the things happening at the same time, so we sort of have a competition, which is hard to compete actually.
Right. But on the other hand, people who love soccer, they would probably not really go to organ concerts anyway. So it's maybe not necessarily a real competition, right? We were joking that the organizers could put up a screen in front of the church where they could televise a football match, and we could play like musical interpretation for
Sure.
4 hands on that match, like a silent movie. So going back to our concert yesterday, yes, it was an interesting preparation, right? Can you tell us, Ausra, how did we practice for that at home before that? Perhaps even going back to our first recital in Vilnius University St. John's Church, how did we manage to practice on one organ bench for 4 hands?
Well, actually, we started quite early. This is not the first, organ duo program that we are doing, so we are used to each other a lot, I would say. But with Seydelmann, actually 2 sonatas we had performed before on various occasions, especially the first one. But number 3 to number 6 we just learned, for these 2 recitals. But we started actually quite early, I would say at the late February, because we did not have so much time to practice both together. And this is such sort of music that you cannot practice on your own. You have to do it together. So we would play half an hour at night, maybe 3-4 times a week.
And there are 6 sonatas, right? And each sonata consists of 3 parts. And it's very interesting because it's very traditional layout. Fast, slow, fast movement, 3 movements. And in each of the 5 sonatas, the relationships of the keys between 1, 2, and 1 is always the same. It's tonic, subdominant, tonic. So the first sonata starts in C major, the second part starts in the F major, and going back to C major on the third part. The second sonata starts in F major, then second movement starts in B flat major, and then the third movement is in F major, and so on, right? Except with one occasion, the sonata number 4 is in E flat major, and the second part is sort of the relative key, 6th scale degree key, C minor.
Key.
Yeah, parallel key, exactly. So that's its layout, except for the 6th sonata, which is written in G minor. I think every movement is written in G minor, and it has sort of slow introduction, right? Slow introductory movement, then a faster fugue, the only fugue in the cycle, and then even slower ending, right? Solemn, bombastic sort of ending of the entire cycle. So it was sort of very dramatic ending recital in minor key.
Yes, and at the beginning, even before playing at St. John's Church in Vilnius, we thought maybe it's not such a good idea to finish in minor key, because in general most of our keys are major keys, and we would thought to play 5 sonatas in major keys and then suddenly to finish all recital in the minor key wouldn't be nice. But after all, we decided to leave this original order, and I think it was a good idea.
Because Franz Seydelmann probably wrote the same in the same order for a reason, right?
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
So that's why we kept the original ordering too. Great. So going back to our practicing, you said we practiced for 30 minutes, right? Each day.
Approximately. I didn't measure it. With,
So the entire program lasts about 1 hour, right?
Sure.
Like a traditional organ recital length. So it's interesting. We chose to play on one evening, one half of the program. So basically sonatas 1, 2, 3, and on the second day, sonatas 4, 5, and 6. And then we start alternating 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, tell me, Ausra, was it? Were you happy with this kind of rehearsal or let's say practice mode?
Yes, actually, it wouldn't take so much time, but it would keep all the sonatas fresh.
So because the program is normal recital program, 1 hour. And if we don't if you want to devote more time for each of the sonata, then you would need to practice like for 2 at least hours or more. But of course we would not practice only for 4 hands. We would practice other things that we need to practice, and this was sort of additional practice that we did at the end of the day. So I think it was wise to choose this just half of the program each day, and then keep alternating back and forth until basically we were comfortable with all 6 of them, right?
Sure, I agree.
Okay. What about the registration? How did we discover the possibilities of registration for St. John's organ for the first recital?
Because St. John's Church organ has 3 manuals, we decided to play like each sonata on a different manual and don't mix them together. So we started to play first sonata on the 3rd manual on Oberwerk, and then to go down to play second sonata on the 2nd manual and the 3rd sonata on the Hauptwerk or first manual. And then when we did again, with the 4th movement starting on the 3rd manual, then 5th on the 2nd, and to finish the G minor sonata on the grid. So it was actually nice. We haven't repeated any registration because there are so many organ stops at St. John's Church.
Well, exactly. Our original wish was to keep every movement sort of fresh with a different set of registration, but to keep it sort of systematic and to keep it simple. When we have so many choices, like 1,000 choices of registration for each movement on this large 64-stop instrument, we wanted to keep it simple, right? But still to keep it fresh and not to repeat any registrations. And that's why we chose to play each different sonata on each different manual. And of course, we have to tell our listeners that we had an assistant, right?
Sure. But she helped us only with page turning and only at St. John's Church.
Right.
In Nida, we turned pages for ourselves.
Exactly. In Nida, we practiced actually turning pages by ourselves and even wrote down places in our scores which one of us would turn the page at each particular
I
place.
didn't write mine because I did most of the page turning because I was playing the first part and so sitting on the right side of the bench, and it was easier for me, actually closer to that place where you put your fingers in order to turn pages. But Vidas did it occasionally, so he had to write it down in order not to forget.
And then, of course, in Nida, it's a different style of organ, right? With Ruk positive, only 2 manuals, and still we have to think to keep it simple, systematic, but unique for each movement. And I think the easiest way to do this is by having a system where you start each sonata on a different manual, then continue on another manual the second part, and then going back and forth between manuals, sort of. Sonata number 1 was played on manual 2, 1, and 2, and then sonata number 2 was 1, 2, 1, and number 3 was 2, 1, 2, number 4 was 1, 2, 1, and so on. So basically we were keep alternating those manuals. Can you tell, Ausra, why we chose to do this kind of alternation and actually not the entire sonata on one manual, but just one movement on one manual?
It was an easier thing to register here and to change organ stops because the Ruk positive stops are on the Ruk positive case. So basically you have to turn back from the organ bench and then to pull the stops on. So it was an easier thing, I think, to do.
And Ruk positive is probably the division of organs, organ pipes, which are sort of not really often found in our region, right? in our Catholic world, basically. It's more like a Lutheran tradition, and this is actually Lutheran Church. So organ builder Rimantas Gučas in 1984 built this organ on this idea that it was suited for the Lutheran Church. And one case, this rug positive called, is situated behind the organist. But most of the time you still have stop handles in next to the organist, right? Either on either side of the organ bench or above the key desk, right? But in this case, rug positive stop handles are located behind the organist too.
Sure, and it makes things harder, in order to register and to pull off the stops.
So when one organist plays this, for example, any kind of solo recital, it's really, really tricky because you have to lean back and turn your entire upper body, your torso, sort of at a 90-degree angle and grab the stop handle from the back and pull it when you need it, right? And it's difficult because also the numbers or the stop names are not clearly visible. So now the organizers, I think, put the stickers of bright sheet of paper, just written in with pencil, just temporary stickers, so that you could clearly see the names of each stop, and that really helped a lot.
Yes, and I think you did an excellent job, registering.
And it was easier for me because I was not sitting on the middle of the bench. I was sitting at the end, at the edge of the left side of the bench, so the distance between me and the rug positive stops were much, much shorter, and I could really manipulate those stops easier.
It was easy for me because I did not have any organ stops on my side, so I wasn't responsible for, assisting with stops.
So the Hauptwerk, the main division stops, are also located on the left side, sort of. So you always have to do everything with your left hand. The pedal stops are located above the key desk, but we didn't use them because our program is only for 4 hands.
Sure. So shall we talk a little bit about performance, actual performance?
Yeah, because that's what's the most interesting, right? These adventures. And by the way, before performing, we had a short rehearsal, sort of sound check, right?
Yes, it took about an hour. We sort of, played for like a couple pages of each movement and checked if, registration works okay.
And we smartly, or let's say wisely, chose to write in registrations on a separate sheet of paper using abbreviations of the stops, for example, foot length also. So on the second manual, if I need principle 4, I would write P4, right? Or flute 8, I would write F8. Sort of easier to understand and remember. We did the same in the first recital in Vilnius 6 weeks ago, and it worked okay. It's important that we don't waste time on the organ bench at the actual rehearsal before the performance, right? So we did all the preparation in our heads and wrote everything on paper ahead of time.
Yes, it saved us a lot of time, and saved us our nerves, actually.
Did the mental preparatory work on registrations was sort of accurate? Did we have to adjust something?
Basically,
in reality,
not much.
Not much.
Yes.
It was satisfactory, I think, registration.
I guess so too.
Because you see, Franz Seydelmann didn't write it specifically for the organ. It was for any type of keyboard that you had in those days. So we had our choices to do many things, right? And we chose the system, right?
Yes.
To alternate the manuals in each movement, and that was also easier to change and sounded fresh. We didn't repeat any kind of registration.
Yes.
Every movement is sort of new. So, Ausra, did you think that the listeners could have a good grasp of the instrument, get good feeling of the tonal possibilities? Did we explore everything?
Well, almost everything. Of course, we haven't used pedal because it was not necessary. And actually, there was one organ stop which we did not use, and it's a mixture of Hauptwerk. Because actually, in this organ, it's so strong.
It's awful.
It's so loud. I mean, it just blows you off, from the organ bench when you put it on.
Yeah.
So we decided not to use it even for grand finale.
Yeah. So a lot of organists who play there sometimes don't pay attention to these characteristics of the mixture, and they say, "Oh, it's a mixture. I need to use it," right? In those culminations of my program. But you really have to pay attention to the sound, not necessarily what it says on the name of the stop, but how it sounds, right? And there are other high-pitched sounds like 1 foot principle. It's called sedecima, or high-pitched fifth stop 1 1/3 there, which sort of compensate for the
Sure, I
mixture.
think we had enough sound.
Of course. So we didn't use the mixture, and actually organizers thanked us for that.
Yes.
So now about the actual performance. We wrote everything, registration ahead of time, on separate sheet of paper, put it on the music rack, and it was sort of visible to me. And we started playing on the second manual, right? And everything sort of was sort of like expected, right? We knew the program, we knew the instrument. It was the fourth time we played there, and nothing really tricky should have happened. But tell Ausra, what did you notice when I was playing the second movement of the second sonata?
Yes, I realized that suddenly something happened at Vidas' side, and I just looked, while playing, that he is repeatedly, hitting the key, and that key is not responding. And actually, what he realized to do, suddenly, because it was going on, the real performance, because during rehearsal it didn't happen. That he tried to play an octave higher, but that's where I had to play my diapason, and when he realized that that's a bad solution, so he had to reduce his texture. So tell us more about it. It was so scary.
It when playing this type of four-hand sonata, you have a couple of choices. You have a couple of choices to do for the left hand, because the left hand sometimes goes beyond the compass of the keyboard, because harpsichord and pianoforte can go up to C or sometimes F in the octave below the bass octave, right? So you have those 5 or 4 keys still available, and there are numerous places in this collection that my compass didn't fit the sonata too. So what I did, sometimes I jumped up an octave, and that was usually okay, because sort of still in those places you could have figurations of the left hand jumping octaves down and up, and other things, other devices. So one solution was to keep it one octave higher. Another solution was to repeat the same bass note at the same pitch level. So, if for example, my place has B flat and B flat, an octave leap, B flat, B flat, B flat, B flat, B flat, B flat, like that. I could be playing entire octave, one octave higher, both notes, right? Or I could keep repeating this low B flat, B flat, B flat, B flat, B flat, B flat, on the same spot. So I did it both ways sometimes. But then what Ausra noticed, when this note A was sort of not responding at all, right? I had to sort of redo something and do something creative about that. Either to keep going upwards into Ausra's range, which was not always a good choice, or I realized I could use another manual.
Yes, and that's what it, and actually it worked.
Right.
Okay.
Not at the first in a place where that happened, but soon afterwards, I decided to improvise a little bit our registration of the secondary manual and to add sort of similar sounds, maybe softer sounds for the bass, so that it would not be too prominent, and then my left hand compass would be okay, and this A note would still be playable.
And then, because all this adventure happened in the second sonata, and we still had so many sonatas, so many movements to come, so we realized that this recital will have lots of challenges and adventures.
Mm-hmm. Were you affected by my improvisation of those registrations, or you just kept playing like usual?
I tried to keep playing, but of course I was affected. It's you cannot not to be affected in such a situation.
Because when you play together,
yes,
you sort of become part of one person.
Yes.
Right? Two people become one. And whenever one part of you is in trouble,
yes,
another person feels that.
Yes, sure.
It definitely feels that. And I also noticed, you know what I noticed? I noticed whenever I tried to fix something in my left hand to avoid those missing A notes, I noticed that Ausra, with the back of the side of her eye, is following me, right? And basically looking if I will be successful in managing the situation. Maybe Ausra, tell us a little bit what were you thinking about when you were following me?
Well, I was scared, and hoped that everything will work okay. It's not an easy thing because it's not a rehearsal. You cannot stop, and fix things. You just must keep going.
It's a real time, right?
Yes. Doesn't matter what will happen. You must go on.
That's the probably sign of professional, right? It doesn't matter how many degrees you have, how much money you are paid, right? But you have to decide, I'm not going to stop.
Yes.
No matter what, right? I have to keep going until the very, very last chord. And only then I will stop and bow and
actually that's what we did, and I'm actually feel quite proud of you, actually.
And the trick probably of not stopping is what? Is probably keeping the same pulse.
Sure.
Whenever you miss the the note, for example, or play an octave higher, or it's a silent A, and sometimes I hit the silent A, and it's a sort of a rest, right, at that point. So it wasn't really like very, very perfect left hand part, right? But the point was to keep the pulse and flow of music the same, so that listeners downstairs would not miss a beat, would not notice anything. And Ausra, do you think that listeners noticed something?
Well, I don't think we noticed much actually. Maybe some of them, who maybe had some professional music training. So, but others, I think, did not notice.
Of course, Balys Vaitkus, our friend and colleague, probably noticed some things.
Noticed, of course.
But perhaps not all things.
Yes.
Right? And his student, who came to listen to this recital from Vilnius, actually, who was in the audience, later told us that she didn't.
Yes,
she didn't,
and she liked it.
She liked it, yeah. So that's the goal, actually. Whenever you play in four hands or in two solo part of the organ, right? Whenever you play something in public for people, even for one person who is listening to you, keep the same pulse, keep counting out the beats, and force yourself not to stop no matter what.
Yes, rhythm is the most important part.
Right. There are three main elements of music, right? Rhythm, melody, and harmony.
And in this case, I think rhythm, is the most crucial point.
Yes. So that was a challenge. Of course, imagine, Ausra, that we hadn't had the experience of playing hundreds of different instruments before and hundreds of recitals, right? And imagine that would have been our second recital all together, right? We were imagine we were students, right?
Yes.
Just playing the organ for the, I don't know, first year. Would that be possible for us to focus so much and keep going?
I don't think so. You have to have an experience. Only then you can control it.
When this kind of thing happens? Even
I think in this situation we might have controlled it better, but we still did the best possible at that moment. But it's scary. It takes a lot out of you, and I'm glad now for some time we won't have to play Franz Seydelmann, because the texture is so thin of these sonatas. There are no places that you can hide actually, like in the thick texture, if you will hit like wrong notes or something, nobody probably will notice. But in such a classical music, everybody might notice things.
And of course, when it's written, the music is written out, you have nowhere to hide, right? You still have to hit this A note, either octave higher or on another manual. Otherwise, it would sound sort of empty sometimes, right? Incomplete chord. So that's one of the advantages of improvising, playing not from the score but from your head. And whenever this kind of thing happens with organs, and it happens sometimes, right, on unfamiliar instruments, whenever we improvise, we can really adjust to situation and, for example, not to use this A at all.
But I think in this, concrete recital, you used enough of improvisatory skills, I think. Actually, that I think what helped you, to survive this recital.
Well, exactly, because it's sort of...
you used your creativity, to escape this collapse.
They say no plan survives first-hand contact with the enemy in war. So it's the same in our situation, right? We planned everything. We wrote down registrations on separate sheet of paper. We wrote down the manual changes on the score with pencil, right? Like 1 2 1 2 1 2. We did everything.
We knew music very well, actually.
We knew music almost by heart. But still, we couldn't plan for this unexpected moment, right? And we had to adjust.
Sure.
Right? And unexpected things do happen in organs, more, for example, than on any other instruments, because they are so unpredictable, mechanically complex instruments, and each one of them is so unique.
Yes.
But maybe
it's so exciting to know about.
So, Ausra, what is our next plan for the future to play in four hands?
Well, now we are thinking about Bach's Brandenburgo concertos, and actually we had played 2 of them in the past, but now we are planning to learn a couple more new and to play a recital.
So we will need to do some arrangements, right?
Sure.
From orchestral score to reduce the texture into manageable forehand or with pedals texture for 2 organists to play on the same instrument, on the same organ bench. And there are piano arrangements for 4 hands written out by Max Reger, actually.
Yes.
Which is not bad. Will we use that, or will we try to do something on our own?
You know, when we played those 2 Brandenburgo concertos, one arrangement you made for us, and I liked that better than Reger's one.
Brandenburg Concerto number 1?
Yes. Yes.
So maybe what I will do is I will scan the music, and I will use the program called Sibelius. Sibelius have an add-on addition application where you can scan the music, and this scan can be arranged, rearranged, manipulated in various ways and put into notation, and then print it out.
Yes.
And it's quite accurate nowadays.
I think that's a good idea.
So that's what we'll do. Our next recital probably will be in the fall on St. John's Church.
Late
in
November.
Vilnius. Late November, yeah. So let's go out now and let's see what the town of Nida has to offer. Weather is nice, and we'll hear another concert tonight where our friend Balys Vaitkus will be playing the organ, and who else will be performing?
Giedrius Galvota will be playing flute, and his wife Günther will sing.
Right, so exciting musical weekend, sort of. And I hope you will try those ideas that we talked about in this podcast in your performance, not necessarily in your practice, but also in your performance. Ausra, before we end, can you tell us a little bit, just one thing that our listeners can apply in their practice too? How to prepare for the element of the surprise, of unexpected?
Well, you shouldn't forget to breathe. Breathing is the most important in these situations as this is. You know, just keep breathing.
Because otherwise, what happens?
Otherwise, you will stop.
And keep panicking, right?
Yes.
It's a panic attack, and it's never healthy, never productive way to deal with the problem
Sure.
like this. But if you keep breathing, you have a chance, right? Because then your brain gets more oxygen.
Yes, and with oxygen, new ideas will come, which will save you.
By the way, can you recreate the same thing at home? Maybe do some sticky notes on your keyboard, sort of. Maybe your friend can do something like that to prepare for the situation, or it's not really?
Well, it really will not be the same, because actually on the actual performance you never know what will happen. So
So just keep clear clear mind, keep breathing, and be prepared to improvise.
Sure. And have fun.
Thank you for listening.
Bye-bye.
If you liked this conversation, I encourage you to visit my blog Secrets of Organ Playing at organduo.lt, where you will find lots of insights, practical advice, and training for every area of organ playing. You can subscribe to this blog for free to get your daily dose of inspiration and to be the first to know when any of my future podcasts roll out. I hope to help you reach your dreams in organ playing. I'm Vidas PInkevicius. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you online really soon.